You know, most couples' work stays in the head. Okay, right? We're up here. We're talking about communication and understanding equity. You're learning new moves. And admittedly, a lot of the work that I do at Powerful Love is starts in the head too. But the truth is that real change, and especially when we're talking about the embodiment of feminine energy or masculine energy and the experience of desire, that lives in our bodies, my friends. And without attention to what's happening on a somatic level, we are missing a key piece of liberation, of power and possibilities within ourselves, within our partnerships, within life. And I didn't want y'all to go without that. So I am bringing in an amazing guest today whose expertise is our somatic embodiment, especially for women. And she is damn good at what she does. So excited to bring her in and so excited to have this conversation where we move out of the head and into the body in talking about masculinity, femininity, polarity, desire, all of the yummy things that we are here for. So I want to start by welcoming you, my friends, to another Catalyst conversation for the relationship revolution. Here, we challenge the unquestioned assumptions about love, life, and leadership. We disrupt the patterns that keep us stuck, and we reveal the truths that no one has taught us. Here, we're about activating a new way of leading ourselves and our relationships consciously, courageously, differently, and dare I say, better. What I desire for all of us in this relationship revolution is to be able to have the kind of relationships, the kind of life that most people only dream of. And I am so glad that you are here. Are you ready? Let's get into it. So this month, we are currently in August of 2026, if you're watching it live. We are in a series that I'm calling Beyond Balance, the truth about masculine, feminine, and desire. We're going where most relationship conversations won't, into the ideas of polarity, into the deconstruction of who we really are, beyond binary, and into the energetic truths of this piece of our identities and our relationship and our attractions, so that we can feel more alive, more embodied, more authentic. If you're just joining us mid-series, this is exactly where you are supposed to land, because whether you have been with us since episode 1 or you're here for the first time today, I bet that you have felt this. Doing everything right, managing yourself and your life, trying to figure it all out, and still feeling like something in your body has gone quiet, maybe especially where desire is concerned. That's what we're going to get into today. Before I introduce our guest, let me introduce myself. For those of you who may be new to me or this work, my name is Dr. Jeni Wahlig. I am an award-winning relationship mentor, speaker, author, intuitive guide, and I am proudly a relationship revolutionary. My mission is to revolutionize how most people think about and go about their relationships, and to redefine what it truly means to love, so that we may all experience the true power and possibilities that our relationships have to offer. And nothing, truly nothing, impacts the quality of our lives more than the quality of our relationships. We are in relationship all the time, everywhere, in every corner of our lives, including a relationship with ourselves and pieces of ourselves. Relationships are the infrastructure of everything that we are trying to build, my friend. And yet, no one teaches us how to do them well, especially when they are challenging us or something's not working. Most of what we have learned about relationships not only doesn't work, it is also part of what's keeping us stuck and unhappy. So the revolution that I am talking about starts to change all of that. This is about a great global healing through love, through consciousness. This is a return from our separation into our wholeness, and a paradigm shift in the way that humanity relates, loves, and leads, starting at our most intimate levels. In these catalyst conversations, I'm not here just to give you insight. I am here to wake something up within you so you may live and be a part of this relationship revolution too. Now, let me, with great pleasure, introduce our guest for today, Emily Wishall. Emily is a somatic coach and certified Rolfer who has spent more than 14 years working at the level of body, fascia, and nervous system with women who have done all the inner work and still feel stuck. She's the author of Radical Embodiment and the creator of Align, From Hiding to Thriving, a program for helping high-achieving women reclaim their strength, sensuality, and visibility. What she's found again and again is that the missing piece was never in our heads. It was in our bodies. Emily, my friend, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Catalyst Conversations for a Relationship Revolution.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So, I want to start in the beginning with a bit of your story. What made you decide that this was the work that you were going to give your life to? The body, the nervous system, fascia, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a one moment deciding factor of like, this is it. It was more a journey. I, have the unfortunate but not too common story of from a very young age, at like age 8, I remember as the first time I felt like I was fat and didn't like my body. And I know that's not just, something that women alone experience, but
Right.
so many women, it's so common from a very young age, have stories of feeling just not good, right? Trying to fix their body, feeling like our body is the problem. And so most of my life from 8 to like late 20s was around how do I fix my body? My body's the problem. And so I won't go, I'll try to be as like concise as possible, but I have a degree in exercise science with an emphasis on physical therapy. And I remember even in my undergraduate studies thinking, oh, if I just better understand anatomy or physiology, then I can like find the missing link. Then I can fix this body and finally be skinny enough. The goal was always be like skinny or small enough. And through the years, through studying, through, what led me into exercise science, I was a physical care attendant. I was going to go into pharmacy, loved chemistry. I always knew I wanted to help people. So I think that's my fundamental thing. I always knew I wanted to help people, but I only knew a very linear way of work and career path. So I thought, okay, helping people, healthcare, I'm the type of person who I used to get queasy having blood drawn. I have a lot of cases in my family. I was like, I can't do that. I don't want to be a doctor. So I thought, oh, I love chemistry. I'll be a pharmacist. Realized the reality of the pharmacy that I wanted to own, which was also educating people around herbal and understanding that just wasn't what was likely going to be happening. So I switched majors halfway through college and I got a job as a personal care attendant for a girl. She was 17 at the time and had cerebral palsy. And her way through operating through the world was through a motorized wheelchair. And I would go to her PT sessions and learn different exercises and strengths and movements and help her do them even just 2 to 3 times a week. And I will never forget, like, it just was so dramatic how much more independence in daily life she got from that little bit of movement. And so that's what really inspired me, this idea of that next layer of clarity of I wanted to help people reach their full potential through the human body, whether they were born with a disability, whether they were in an accident, right, and then had a limitation. And that led me to discovering the fascia. I had a full-time internship back in 2011 with a physical therapist who did myofascial release. Myo in anatomy just means muscle. So it's specifically working with the fascia around the muscle, but there's so much different kinds of fascia that I think people often don't know about or talk about. But and that blew my mind. I knew before then as fascia as a anatomy vocab term, which was connective tissue, that there was no other conversation. And I've always had a more holistic lens on the body, on healing. And to me, the fascia as a framework made so much sense because it is everywhere. It literally is what gives our bodies their shape, our shape. I think of it as our soft tissue skeleton. Um,
Mm.
Without fascia, your muscles would literally be juice. Like your muscles wouldn't have form. It's in between the muscles. It's what holds our organs in place. And it has this very much collagen matrix fibrous web that kind of looks like a spider web in a way, but there's also the lesser talked about part, which is the interstitial fluid. And most of fascia is actually this interstitial fluid. It's this very much alive, living water
Mm.
substance. And we have, this is a little bit of background, I guess, on fashion, and I'll continue on of how did this all leads to the work I do now in women in leadership roles and that intersection and around that, feminine, masculine polarity, but it's all relevant. But so some background for fascia. So we have that elastic and fibrous properties with aging, repetitive movement patterns, emotional traumas, physical traumas, etc., and just ways that we carry our body. We become overly fibrous in certain areas and we lose that
Mm.
elasticity. And we start to lose what I see as more adaptability and resilience, not only literally through your physical body, but also emotionally and mentally. When
Mhm.
we are carrying our body and holding our body in a certain way and have for years and years and years, and maybe then we're doing all the mindset work, right? We're doing these growth things, but the body still doesn't have that information. We can still feel stuck or sticky. And having worked with the fascia for 15 years now, I personally believe it's where all our limiting beliefs are stored, all our emotions are. I think trauma, not only this lifetime, but ancestral trauma. Um,
Mhm.
and I have this curiosity around is that we're, our consciousness more in that like interstitial fluid part.
Yeah.
But sharing that. So I devoted the last 15 years to more than just fascia, but that's where I wanted to start. I thought that is like the lens through which I want to support a human.
Mhm.
And so I knew about Rolfing structural integration through an uncle of mine. And if you're not familiar, so the word comes from Dr. Ida Rolf. She called it structural integration. So it's hands-on manual therapy as well as movement re-education,
Mm.
working with that fascia webbing to support the body to come back into its natural alignment. And
Okay.
so it's all around alignment, but seeing the whole physical body. And I experienced my own profound shifts going through that work in regards to just some huge emotional releases and a recognition of, oh my God, I've been pretending my whole life through my posture that I'm quote
Mm.
unquote okay, like I'm good, right? We learn that good posture. We're not
Yep.
taught how to actually have natural, easeful, upright posture. And for me, it was unconsciously a way of performing to the external world that, like, I've got it together, I'm good, I know what I'm doing. When in reality, it felt really out of integrity.
Mm.
And again, I wasn't conscious of this until I had
Right.
this huge shift of
Right.
experiencing my body in a whole other way. And like was literally out on a walk one evening walking and had tears come down my eyes because I realized while walking so easeful, I feel graceful, but I'm upright. And I had a sense of what it's like to be in my body, open, authentic, vulnerable, but it felt safe and sustainable because I had connection to my inherent strength,
Mm.
and my inherent support. And so
Mhm.
that was a really foundational moment in regards to the direction of my work and curiosity. And the more and more I experienced that, I started to then get really curious more around the emotional side. I was always curious about it, but started to do more specific trainings, some coaching certifications. I'm also a teacher, did a year-long program on the art of feminine presence. So I used to lead a lot of small groups around that, which is really just more embodiment work. And through that work was the first time I learned how to actually inhabit my pelvic bowl. Never even considered that before, right? Never even like, we had some of these things. It's like, we don't even know their options until like, wait,
Right.
why was I not taught this when I was 14?
Mm.
And it was through doing that I really experienced my enoughness from the inside out. I knew I was enough. And again, I shared a little bit of my story of feeling like I was fat from a young age. And this, that undercurrent of I'm not enough was kind of constant. Like, I'm not enough until this. And I would try to power through and like, I'm enough. And I was doing these like different confidence courses, and not to say they didn't have, they weren't helpful. They were, but it was never quite a full actual embodied breakthrough. It was just like, okay, like, yeah, I'm feeling a little better. And it was through actually when I'm home, when I'm in my pelvic bowl, when I'm inhabiting that very essence of myself, I can literally feel my enoughness from the inside out. And it's a huge piece of what I help women in, because when we're there, we're not in that comparative mind of, oh, I got to one up them. They do this. I'm not enough. It's just, you feel and know your enoughness from the inside out. And so that was
good.
About, 9 years ago. So I've been on this journey and path for a long time. And through all of this, it was around then 2020 when COVID hit. And through a mastermind I was in, and some conversation with a woman in there, I realized like, oh, like that story around like that constant mental preoccupation around food and how much am I eating and restricting or not, or exercise, and just this constant preoccupation with trying to get my body to look a certain way. It wasn't there. Like, I just wasn't, I was just eating to nourish. And again, it was like not until this conversation that I was like, wait a second, that hasn't even been like, I feel
The thing.
good.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable in my body. It's not taking me an hour to get dressed, not because I'm like accessorizing, but because everything made me feel not good or wrong. And so that led to, and in my work around that time was already starting to go around like supporting women around their body image, around feeling good in their body through inhabiting their body. And so that all led to me writing my book, Radical Embodiment, a practical guide to celebrating the skin you're in. And that came through from, again, that recognition of like, wow, I'm not stuck in that preoccupation of constantly worrying about my body and food, and the amount of life force and energy that freed up was huge. And so I wrote the book to help other women of like, we can get off this hamster wheel. I don't think any of us want to be on our deathbed, like wishing we were, like thinking about our aesthetic or what size, or do we fit back in those, size 4 jeans or whatever the story is. And sometimes it's like that we're not curvy enough, right? It's like you're either too big or too small. It's like it's not a win-win.
Yeah.
And so I wrote the book to help reach more women and make the work accessible. Like it does, every chapter ends with the practice to support you in becoming a little bit more in tune with your own body, being more inhabited, because that is the pathway to learning how to actually love our body and recognizing our body as a gift. It's not the problem. And to get out of this old paradigm and that old narrative that as a woman, our worth, our sense of enoughness has anything to do with our weight or our physical appearance. And we have been trained, we have been programmed, we have been conditioned, we've had traumas that have all made us disconnect from this very vessel. And it's through learning how to reconnect that we can access our power and our worth. And to kind of wrap up this story to where I am at now, since 2020, now we're in 2026, the last year and a half, 2 years, especially my one-on-one work with women has just, as it always does, naturally evolved. And yes, so body image is a piece, but that's just like a part. Now it's all really around helping women reconnect with their sensuality, really being strong physically, emotionally, and energetically, and being sovereign. And for me, being in their sovereign, capital S, self, means actually checking in with yourself first and knowing how it is that you feel. I don't think we can know what we want or what we need until we first know how we actually feel. But so many women are running on autopilot, right? They're the moms, the runner of the house, the
Yeah.
wife, the business owners. And so it's like taking care of everyone else. And that fawn nervous system response is often even praised of like, wow, you're so amazing. And it's at the
Mm-hmm.
cost of them being disconnected from themselves. So
Yeah.
my work is all around women in leadership roles and how to be the embodied feminine leader, and recognizing we don't have to disconnect from our sensuality. We don't have to disconnect from our feminine essence to run our businesses, to run our lives, to be in leadership. It's actually through being connected to our sovereign sensual self that allows us to feel really good, really juicy,
Mm.
really alive, and be more magnetic, be more powerful in those roles. And I
Yeah.
think the world really, really, really needs that now. But that's kind of like where I'm coming from as far as what led me to like the body. It just is it,
Mhm.
right? And um, what I'll say too, I recently had a loss in my life, and
Mm.
um, my dear sister-in-law, and she'd been on an 18-month battle with a very rare neuroendocrine pancreatic cancer.
Oh,
But sharing that, because since the diagnosis, our mortality has been on my mind of like life and death and what is this for?
yeah.
And so when I say, the body is what it's about, for me, what I mean, the more that through my experience and through what I see in my clients, we're able to actually map this inner vessel, and through mapping it, we can inhabit and be there, the less we actually overly identify with the body as well as with the ego. And the
Mm.
more we can come back into what matters most, into our heart, and into love, into both giving and receiving love.
I
So
love.
yes, like the body's where it's at, but it's not like, ooh, body. It's actually to then not overly be stuck around the body or limitations or
Mm-hmm.
right aesthetic,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
come to, I think, what matters most in this life, which is love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And kind of a thread that I'm hearing in your story, Emily, is this move away from autopilot, unconscious ways of being in our body, right? Ways
Mhm.
of being in our relationship, ways of being in the world, and moving into a more um, consciously embodied and connected place so that we can uh, be our full sovereign selves, and even like release those limiting beliefs, release the focus on everybody else, let go of all of the things that are unconsciously or below our awareness, draining us of that life force energy, and reclaim that so we can like expand, right? Expand into more of what we're really here for, more of what we really desire.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's an unwinding, but it
Mm-hmm.
definitely is. I had a podcast for a couple years called Radical Embodiment after my book, and I'm sharing that because I would share my definition of embodiment as well as every guest. And for
Mm,
me, because everyone has their own little version, it's just curious, like, how do you define embodiment? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, I like
yeah.
those conversations because there's no right way. Like, I work a lot with women in very high functioning, high achiever, perfectionist roles, and they want to get it
Mm-hmm.
right. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, welcome. Guess what? There's no getting quote unquote there, and you can't get it right. But I think embodiment it's that daily, consistent, courageous choice to choose to return, to come back again and again and again.
I
Um,
like that.
it's not like we do a 3-day weekend and like, oh wow, I'm so embodied, or like, a couple of
Mhm.
times here and there I've had women tell me, oh yeah, I'm like really embodied, like I don't need this, I don't need that. And I am not coming from judgment, but it always is curiosity to me, because I can see myself in them earlier on in my journey, being like, "Oh yeah, I'm good. I'm really embodying this." Realizing it's a journey, right? There's layers and unwinding, but yes, it's all to allow us to be more free to express our true essence of who we are and what is our true purpose in this world.
Yeah.
And for women, it is true. Our power and our worth and our inherent confidence, it's in the body. It
Mhm.
literally is.
Mhm.
And that's how we can access it and move from there in a way that doesn't drain us, right? Yeah, I think we've been that trained to override our body, to like,
Right.
okay, bypass these symptoms, and I'm going to ignore my hunger signals so I can keep powering through. I'm going to ignore my signals to go pee so I can power through.
Mhm.
I got a little tightness here, but I'm going to ignore it until it becomes super, super painful. Or,
Right.
and instead that I'm constantly leaning into myself and my, to bump up against that is, how could we instead lean into curiosity and lean into listening to
Mm,
the signals our body is always giving us, because there's so much wisdom when
mm.
we can come into an allyship with our body versus like an antagonistic battle
Yeah.
fixing, right? There's nothing to be fixed either unless you
Yeah.
actually have an acute injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So bring us into like how this connects with our experience of our femininity, and in particular our experience of desire in relationships, because I know they're all connected, but what do you see happening in on a somatic level that helps us understand why it can be so hard to connect to desire, why it can be so hard to connect to that feminine energy of flow and relaxation and creativity.
Yeah. Well, and something I'll say too on that about the feminine energy, to me, it's not it. Yes, totally that relaxation and flow, but also like and everyone has their own little different opinions. But for me, the feminine energy is also, she's really freaking fierce. Think of that mom, she can get shit
Oh
done,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
just the yin. So
I
I'll
love that.
start with how I define, because I think everyone has their own, and there's not have to be right or wrong, but just
Hmm.
where I'm coming from. I am, there's yin and there's yang. And I think a lot of people are quick to put like feminine with yin, which is like slow and rest and support, and yang is masculine, which is like power and we work and force. I think that you can be in your feminine essence and have both yin and yang. So yin and
I,
yang, I'm
I
not
love it.
defining as feminine and masculine.
Hmm.
For me, and so I'm a heterosexual woman, and so I identify primarily with the female sex essence. And
Hmm.
so, in my perspective, anyone who identifies primarily with the female sex essence, their life will feel better. They will have more energy, more aliveness when they're more connected with their feminine.
Hmm.
And to me, again, like I'm a somatic coach, everything's body. It's a somatic and energetic read that I feel when I'm in my feminine. So it's to be really, really simple for sake of time. It's literally my heart being able to be in resonance and congruence with my pelvic bowl, and specifically my womb
Hmm.
space. And, I work with a lot with women who no longer have their physical womb, but it doesn't matter. It's that energetic space. There's
Yeah.
often a big disconnection between our heart and our pelvic bowl, like between our center of love and compassion and understanding, and then our pelvis being the center of our sexuality and sensuality. And there
Hmm.
can be a disconnect. And so it's through feeling safe enough of allowing, and through practice, the heart and womb to be in resonance. And
Yeah.
from there, like in March, I started this curiosity of realizing, wow, anytime I consider myself a very bold person, but I realize when I'm in bold action, I'm more in my masculine, meaning I'm like, I feel how I define it. My superficial fascia is a little bit more tense. My shoulders, I'm just a little
Mm.
bit more in that driving energy. And again, it's
Hmm.
not wrong, but it doesn't feel as good as when I can allow myself to soften, drop back down and in, and allow my heart and pelvis to be in relationship. And then what is it like for me to be bold from there?
Uh-huh.
And it just feels so much better, and congruent and in integrity. And most of the women that I work, and I'll start. This could apply to any relationship, but I'll start more heterosexual relationship, because
Hmm.
for time it's a little simpler in regards to desire and polarity when
Yeah.
we're talking the feminine and masculine.
Hmm.
But the women I work with have unfortunately and not consciously been disconnected from their feminine for so long because it's not felt safe. That's a huge piece. right?
Yep.
They don't want to receive unsolicited, unwanted sexual attention.
Mhm.
They are in leadership roles, working in, finance, working in corporations, or just running their own business. So there hasn't felt like there's time or productive energy or space to be in the feminine. They're managing the households, they're doing all this. And so they've often lost that connection through just trying to get by in life
Mhm.
and all that they have to get done. And
Yeah.
so that's also an unwinding. But the first piece is they have to feel safe enough to begin to come back home, which is why, I do these small group retreats. And it's a big pillar as to why is like, I believe we need to be shoulder to shoulder with other women doing this work to support each other in that safety and attunement.
Mhm.
Also why like having skilled support is really, really helpful, especially if there's trauma or whatever in the past. Um, but when a woman can come more into her feminine, which is just being more in a receptive sense. And like, so if you're listening to this, you could even feel like just to have a little interplay of like, notice yourself if you're thinking about like everything you have to manage today. Like, I've
Mhm.
got to manage my to-do list. I've got to manage my house. I've got to get my kids out the door. I've got to like, oh, my husband didn't do this or my spouse didn't do this. I got to make sure they do that. And I got to like get on my spreadsheets and all of that. And I even noticed for myself, I'm not really breathing. I'm really in my shallow, more accessory breath. So my neck is tense versus same day, but first just drop down a little bit more in the lower half of your body. So to the best of your ability, wherever you're listening to this, feeling your pelvic bowl, right? If you're sitting driving, maybe you feel the bones under your pelvis. Maybe you feel your legs. Sometimes coming into the pelvic bowl is a little too challenging from the start for a lot of humans, understandably. So I'm always like, okay, can you feel your feet? Just come a little bit more in the lower half of your body. The feminine energy lives in the lower half of the body. It lives in that pelvic bowl. But even just starting to feel legs, feel feet, and if you imagine yourself in your kitchen, right, in your morning, same morning, but you're connected, rooted in your feet. And instead think, what gets to be possible today? Or where might I be able to ask for support
Mhm.
to help take on some of this so that we're not taking it on all ourselves? I think that happens so commonly with women is we just do it because we can or
Right.
because we think we have to, or it's faster.
Mhm.
And how often are we doing things just because we can, but it actually is not at all what we want or in service of us.
Right. Right.
So it's not about like, yes, I'm a huge fan of having consistent practice of going and having time unplugged and quiet. But the
Mhm.
beauty of embodiment work is you can do it literally anytime. Anytime I'm driving my car, I'm always doing practices, cutting my vegetables, right? I'm just checking in, right? Checking in with myself. How do I
Mhm.
feel? What do I need? And that is huge. It's huge. And in terms of that desire piece, you're more tuned in. We know for us women, it takes us longer to be turned on from a very physiological, structural standpoint. And I think so many of us women were so disconnected from that sense of aliveness and sensuality that's
Mhm.
literally just underneath the surface at any given moment. We just have to slow down and start to feel. And
Yeah.
the slowing down doesn't mean we're not still outputting just as much, but our energy behind it is different. And when
Mm.
it comes to in that heterosexual masculine feminine kind of dynamic, it's huge to also then allow the more we can soften back down and in for your
Mhm.
partner if they do identify with masculine to rise up and to hold you more, to hold
Mhm.
on more of the load or the burden of the household in ways that you might really be surprised that he can meet you.
Yeah.
And right, it's giving that invitation through us going first to
Yeah.
soften, to be vulnerable, to be with what's real.
Mhm.
And then you're tuning in more to yourself through just checking in of how you're feeling, through allowing yourself to savor your bites of food more, even if you're eating in the car, right? That's a
Mhm.
very sensual experience. And to just not be so overridden and in that management, hyper focused mode that
Mhm.
pulls us out of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot there, but that was a big question. There was like different parts. So
Yeah, yeah,
but
no, this is really rich, and deep stuff, Emily, and I wish we had more time to, like, get into all of it because there's there's so much liberation available in the things that you're talking about, but I wanna just highlight a couple of things that I'm taking away.
yeah.
Um, One is the idea of, like, connecting more to my pelvic bowl, like, dropping my awareness there and anchoring and grounding myself in, as an embodied practice to come just just practicing, right? Keep practicing to support me in, connecting more to that embodied feminine energy. And I hear you talk too a lot about, just the slowing down and staying, like, becoming a little bit more conscious about what our body is saying to us, what our body might need, or how we're feeling, or being in our body while we're doing a thing. And
Mhm.
I love the idea of like embodiment as a return to, a coming back to, because that reminds us that this isn't something that we just have to get good at and just, like, be able to do,
Or check
right?
off the
This
list.
right,
This
exactly,
person,
right?
I've
This
got
is
a
like,
lot of clients. They're like, I just got to check out. I'm like,
no, no, this is a part of
good.
who we
Yeah.
is a part of who we become.
Mhm.
And in doing so, as you said, we're leading ourselves. We become softer with our partners. We become more safe in our bodies and allow ourselves more attention to, or more connection to desire, connection to receiving,
Mhm.
right? Receiving both pleasure, but also support, that we're not in the managing of everything.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a big distinction too, because are we really able to really receive pleasure, sexual
right.
pleasure, or very innocent pleasure, like eating a
Yeah.
delicious berry, right? There's
Yeah.
pleasure is just so innate, but we're disconnected. But when we're in that
Right.
management, and it's how do we create the support, ask for the support
Mhm.
that then allows us to like, oh yeah, have more room to lean
Yeah.
in and to feel and to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I can absolutely, as you're talking about this, it makes so much sense that this embodiment, that this awareness of our body, connection to our body is critical to opening the door, because to desire to our femininity, to uh, the kind of quality of life and relationship that we really want to have, right? Um, because there's so much that, when we're not conscious, when we're in that programming, when we're managing, when we're storing stress, when we're in more masculine energy and not in our sovereignty, right? That's it feels, as I think about it, like energy blocks to
Mhm.
the flow of our highest way of being. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a disconnection. It's
Yeah.
a disconnection.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think, what comes to me, because I say this a lot, but like confidence and women being confident, which is like,
Mhm.
a little different than desire, but that's a big piece, is I think
Right.
sometimes we're like, oh, when I get this next certification or do this next thing, I'm like, the I don't believe the issue with confidence is that you're not capable. It's not what I see. It's not what I've experienced myself, right?
Mhm.
It's that we're disconnected.
Right.
And right. And it's being so gentle with ourselves in this process, being so gentle and
Mhm.
gracious and curious,
Mhm.
because there are reasons we have been disconnected. There are times when it has served us so
Yeah.
importantly.
Yeah.
And it's as we're in these stages of life where you are more resourced, where you are more curious, right? That it's an invitation to reconnect,
Mm.
an invitation to come back.
I
Even in my own recent grief experience, I realized it was maybe 10 days after, my sister-in-law passed, and I was on a call with a coaching client, my first, I canceled most all, and that was my first call. And I just shared with her very well, I was like, oh, wow. Because, I usually will start with us centering and doing a little practice. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I've been pretty disconnected. I have not been connected to my center at all. And as I was also helping tend to, I won't go into all of the personal stuff, kids and stuff, but I didn't feel any shame or judgment. But it was good because, again, my clients tend to be perfectionists and want to get it right, of like just showing of like, oh yeah, but like, guess what? I get to come back now. And it all makes sense, right? There's times, and it's just like, okay, when I'm ready, our body is always there. Our body's always there. And it's, I think we're calling this episode, you can't think your way into desire, right? You have to feel. And it's not just like snap our fingers like, okay, yeah, I want to be desirable. I want to be connected to my sensuality. It's how do we allow ourselves to feel more and feel more through our day, which is courageous, because when we open ourselves up to feel more, yes, we're opening up to like more pleasure, more deliciousness, more juiciness, and the other spectrum too, right? More sadness or grief or loneliness or frustration or anger. But as humans, we're human beings who are designed to feel. And it's how do we increase our capacity to feel, to be with what is, not getting hooked into story. Story is important to a part, but that's why I like somatic work, is we're not just like, well, this and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
right?
we're not in our heads. We're not stuck in the story.
Like recreating the wheel. It's okay. Well, what do you actually feel there? And then can you process and move that emotion through your body, right? Which maybe it needs some rage, and you need to feel it. And you need to feel your physicality to then come into that place of softness. But, yeah.
I love that. How do we open ourselves up to feel more? Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Emily, I know that you are short on time, and I want to be mindful of that. But I would love to know, for those who are interested in learning more about your work, or in working with you, or in just continuing to benefit from your knowledge and wisdom, how can they get in touch with you? And I believe you have some free resources you wanted to share. Why don't you take a moment to share those with us?
Yeah. So my website is just my name, emilywishall.com. Wishall is just like we wish all a Merry Christmas. It's compound. And then all very easy to spell. But on my website is a great place to just check out if you're curious about my work. And I do have, you'll see a free resources tab, and I have tons, maybe not tons. There's at least 8, I think, free practices there, where you can kind of like take a look, and they're just, I have like the embodied discernment practice, which is how to help yourself in decision making, right? And how to connect with, what's actually your capital T truth. There's a responsive reset practice, which is, I think when I think of nervous system regulation, which I actually use the word recalibration these days.
Ooh, I like that.
I think so quickly we're thinking, I got to calm myself down. I'm supposed to calm. That's not it. So that's an 8-minute practice that will support you when you are feeling elevated, or there's agitation or frustration, or how to actually somatically move that through your body. So those are just a couple. So if you go to my website, and you can kind of take a look at the free resources, and then you just give your name and email, and it'll get emailed. But yeah, I do small group retreats. I have one coming up the end of this month. It's booked, but end of November or middle of November at a hot springs in Southern Colorado. And there will be some next year, more at hot springs, as well as probably Costa Rica.
Wow.
And, yes, I'm a water girl, so it's always got to be at the water. So.
Yeah, I love that.
So I do the small group retreats. I usually do a virtual monthly class, which is really affordable. That's an accessible way to work with me. And then I do have my one-on-one work, which is I do a 3-day one-on-one immersive with one woman. It's my absolute dream work, and it's so profound, because when we're talking about somatics in the body, it's so good to have time. And but I really, my approach is blending my coaching with then the somatic work, whether we're tracking somatically the emotion stuff through the body, whether I'm actually have my hands and we're physically working with the old patterns in the fascia. So yeah.
I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for being here with us and sharing this incredible wisdom. I don't think we talk about our bodies enough as women in a positive and healing way, or in the ways that our bodies really have such power to unlock magic for ourselves and our lives. And so I so appreciate the work that you're doing with women who need this. And yeah, I got so much from this conversation. It helps me connect to places in my own life, in my own embodiment, where I can, where I deserve more attention. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm just so glad that this message is getting out to more and more women. So thank you,
You're
Emily.
welcome. Thanks for having me, Jeni. Thanks.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to move you backstage and wrap up
Okay.
this podcast. Um, guys, we like Emily went deep fast, and if your head is spinning a little bit, that's okay. Listen to this again because she dropped so much gold in this conversation. There are so many places where I received insight into how I might relate to my body a little bit differently, and where I can open up more and become more conscious, where I can feel more. Just the idea of like coming back into my pelvic bowl, right? Centering, like I was at a talk of Emily's last year, and she did a little somatic activity where she helped us uh, like put our heart over our pelvic bowl and connect the two. And it was amazing. This is a woman who knows what she's doing and who is helping us, especially as women, to connect to our bodies and allow our bodies to be doorways into more of what we desire to experience. And that is really fucking incredible. So please keep listening to your bodies. Connect with Emily if what she had to share, like if you felt something pull within you, right, when she was sharing, check out her free resources. And if you got something from this episode, please do us a favor. Subscribe to the Relationship Revolutionary podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave us a review. Share what you took away, what your impression was of this conversation, what moved you. Share this episode with another woman who may need to hear it, who may need this reminder of her worth and the messages that her body has for her and what's possible when she starts to tap in and connect to what's like her body's wisdom. Your engagement, your word of mouth is what gets this conversation into rooms that Emily and I couldn't otherwise get it in. And if you want to help us at Powerful Love accelerate this global movement, this relationship revolution, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn, share about our work, attend our events, and of course, do your part to continue to lead with love. If you're looking for support yourself, please reach out. There are numerous ways that Cal and I can support you. I want to talk about two of them very briefly. One is a free masterclass that I'm doing called From Frustrated to Fulfilled: How to Get Your Partner to Finally Show Up the Way You've Been Asking without burning yourself out trying to make it happen. It's a long title. Every word matters. I'm sticking with it. But it's a really powerful identity activation conversation to support you in getting really clear about where your power is and how you can create shifts. If you know you want a deeper level of support, your next step is to book a powerful decision call with me and Calvin. This is where we talk about where you've been stuck, what's not working, what needs to shift, and whether it's possible, and help you identify and make a powerful decision about your next step. If we think that working together We'll support you if we have the solution that you may be looking for. We'll invite you into one of our programs and talk about what that can look like and help you decide whether it's the right fit for you as well. So I have the link for the decision call in the comments or in the copy, show notes, what's it called? I don't remember. As well as all of Emily's links too. That's what I've got for you all today. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you will join us next week for another Catalyst conversation as we explore more masculine, feminine, desired dynamics and how to open this up for ourselves. New episodes drop every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific. Until then, my friend, keep leading with love.